I am Madison, 31 years old, and I never thought my own sister would sabotage the happiest day of my life. After spending months coordinating with the most sought-after florist in Seattle for my dream wedding arrangements, I watched in disbelief as Vanessa, my 25-year-old sister, deliberately knocked over every centerpiece and destroyed my bridal bouquet at the reception. Why? Because I refused to pay for her study abroad program in Paris. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. The crazy part wasn't even the flower disaster, but what happened afterward when I finally stopped enabling her lifelong entitlement. Before I continue this unbelievable story, drop a comment telling me what you would have done in my situation, and subscribe to hear more family drama stories that will make yours seem normal. Growing up with Vanessa was like living with a constant storm brewing on the horizon. The 6-year age gap between us created a natural division, but it was our parents' treatment that truly separated us. From the moment she was born, Vanessa became the untouchable princess, the daughter who could do no wrong. Meanwhile, I was expected to be the mature one, the responsible one, the one who should know better. Our childhood home in coastal Oregon was modest but comfortable. Mom worked as a hospital administrator, while Dad ran a local hardware store. We weren't wealthy, but we lived well enough, though the definition of well enough differed dramatically, depending on which daughter you asked. When I was 16, I wanted a laptop for school and creative writing, my passion since childhood. I spent an entire year babysitting neighborhood kids, saving every dollar until I could afford a basic model that got the job done. I felt a sense of accomplishment every time I opened that laptop, knowing I had earned it through dedication and patience. When Vanessa turned 16, our parents surprised her with a top-of-the-line MacBook Pro with all the accessories and software she could possibly need. No job required, no savings expected. When I questioned the obvious double standard, my mother simply shrugged and said, "Vanessa is more artistic than you. She needs better equipment for her photography." This pattern continued throughout our lives. I worked retail jobs to put myself through state college, graduating with a degree in event planning and only minimal student loans. Vanessa, meanwhile, attended 4 different universities in 5 years, with our parents covering her tuition, apartment, and living expenses each time. "Your sister hasn't found her calling yet," my mother would explain whenever I questioned why they kept financing Vanessa's educational wanderings. "Not everyone has your practical nature, Madison. Vanessa needs time to explore her options." Despite the favoritism, I built a successful career in corporate event planning. Through networking and countless unpaid overtime hours, I established myself as a respected planner in the Seattle area by my late 20s. I purchased my first condo at 28, a milestone that brought me immense pride but barely a congratulatory call from my family. Vanessa, meanwhile, developed an expectation that everything should be handed to her on a silver platter. When she wanted a weekend trip to Vancouver with friends during her sophomore year, she cried and slammed doors until our parents transferred the money. When she admired an expensive camera lens while shopping with our mother, it somehow appeared as an early birthday present the following week. Her approach to life became predictable: want, demand, receive. Our parents justified their behavior as keeping the peace. "You know how Vanessa gets when she's disappointed," became their standard response, a phrase I would hear countless times throughout our lives. It was easier to give in than to weather the emotional hurricane that followed any denial. As adults, the pattern only intensified. Last year, Vanessa decided she needed a new apartment because her perfectly adequate one-bedroom was affecting her mental health with its, quote, lack of natural light. After our parents hesitated, she refused to attend Thanksgiving dinner. They eventually gave in, covering her security deposit and first 3 months, rent for a luxury apartment overlooking Lake Union, an apartment she clearly couldn't afford on her part-time gallery assistant salary. When she wanted to attend a destination wedding in Hawaii but claimed she couldn't possibly afford the flight, she expected me to contribute. "You have that fancy corporate job," she argued over text. "What's a few $100s to you?" When I refused, explaining that I was saving for home renovations, she told our cousins I had changed and become obsessed with money since my promotion. 2 years ago, I met Nathan, an architectural photographer with a refreshing perspective and unwavering sense of fairness. Coming from a family where everyone pulled their weight, he immediately noticed the dysfunction in mine. "Your parents are setting Vanessa up for a lifetime of disappointment," he observed, after witnessing one of her meltdowns when our mother suggested she contribute to her car insurance payments. "The real world doesn't operate on tantrums and guilt trips." Nathan became my strongest ally, encouraging me to establish boundaries while offering the perspective I desperately needed. When I would waver, feeling guilty about saying no to my family's requests, he would remind me that true love sometimes means allowing people to experience the natural consequences of their actions. Our engagement shifted family dynamics in unexpected ways. Suddenly, attention was on me in a way it had never been before. Vanessa, who had always been the family's central character, struggled visibly with this change. "I assumed I would be your maid of honor," she stated when I asked my college roommate and best friend Lauren instead. "We're sisters after all." What she failed to recognize was that Lauren and I spoke daily, supported each other through every life challenge, and had built a relationship on mutual respect and reciprocity. Vanessa and I shared DNA but little else. Still, to keep the peace, I made her a bridesmaid and included her in all wedding activities. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Looking back, I should have seen the warning signs. Every dress fitting, every venue tour, every planning session became an opportunity for Vanessa to redirect attention to herself. But nothing prepared me for what would happen when she decided that my wedding day was the perfect leverage point to get what she wanted, something she had not earned and did not deserve. Planning my wedding should have been one of the happiest experiences of my life, and in many ways it was. Nathan and I had saved for almost 2 years to create our perfect day, a celebration that would reflect our journey and the life we were building together. We chose a historical waterfront venue with stunning views of Puget Sound, a place where modern elegance met natural beauty, much like our relationship. My dress was a custom design that incorporated subtle photographic elements Nathan appreciated, while maintaining the classic silhouette I had always envisioned for myself. The music, the lighting, the personalized vows we spent weeks perfecting, everything was coming together beautifully. But one element held special significance beyond all others: the flowers. These weren't just any wedding flowers. My grandmother had been an award-winning florist in Portland for decades, known for her innovative arrangements and ability to tell stories through blooms. Before she passed away 3 years ago, she had given me her collection of pressed flowers and a handwritten note: "Use wild lilies for your bouquet someday. They represent unexpected beauty, just like the love that will find you." I found Eliza, a florist who had actually apprenticed under my grandmother years ago, and we spent 4 months designing arrangements that would honor my grandmother's legacy. We selected wild lilies as the focal point, surrounded by native Pacific Northwest blooms in shades of blue, purple, and white, colors that represented the ocean and sky that both Nathan and I loved to photograph. The arrangements cost $8,000 in total, a significant investment that reflected both their artistic value and emotional significance. The bridal bouquet alone contained hand-wired elements using techniques my grandmother had pioneered, making it both a floral arrangement and a family heirloom. Vanessa, however, saw the flowers as another example of me showing off. During a consultation session that I had thoughtfully included her in, she made her feelings clear. $8,000 for things that will die in a few days. She scoffed loudly enough for Eliza to hear. Must be nice to throw money around like that. What she failed to understand was that Nathan and I had budgeted carefully for every aspect of our wedding. We had prioritized certain elements like the flowers and photography while making compromises in other areas. We chose a Friday wedding date instead of Saturday to reduce venue costs, opted for a curated selection of signature cocktails rather than an open bar, and limited our guest list to 85 people instead of the larger celebration we initially envisioned. As a bridesmaid, Vanessa created constant friction. When I selected deep blue dresses for the bridal party to complement our Pacific Northwest theme, she complained that the color made her look washed out. When I organized a weekend in wine country for my bachelorette party, she pushed for a more expensive trip to Miami. When the makeup artist created a natural, elegant look for the bridal party, Vanessa insisted her own makeup be more dramatic to, quote, match her personality. Throughout all this, I kept reminding myself that the tension was temporary. What mattered was starting my life with Nathan, building our future together. We were saving for a photography studio space where we could combine my event planning business with his photography. A shared dream we'd been carefully working toward, setting aside money from each paycheck. Despite Vanessa's behavior, I had still offered to help her with her own aspirations. After her latest career pivot, from gallery assistant to aspiring fashion stylist, she had mentioned wanting to study at a prestigious fashion program in Paris for a summer to build her portfolio and make connections. When she mentioned struggling to afford application fees, I had offered to cover those costs, $350 that I transferred to her immediately. This wasn't an insignificant amount for me, even with my stable career. Nathan and I lived comfortably but were far from wealthy, especially with our wedding expenses and studio savings goals. "You're more generous than I would be," Nathan commented when I told him about paying the application fees. "After how she treats you, I'm surprised you still want to help her." "She's my sister," I replied. "I want her to succeed, even if we don't always get along. Maybe this Paris program will help her find direction." 4 weeks before our wedding, Vanessa asked to meet for coffee. I assumed she wanted to discuss some bridesmaid details, perhaps her hairstyling or accessories. I could never have predicted what she actually wanted. We met at a waterfront cafe on a bright spring morning. The April sunshine sparkled on Elliott Bay, and ferry boats crossed the water in the distance. Vanessa was uncharacteristically quiet as she stirred her elaborate matcha latte, avoiding eye contact. Finally, she looked up. "So I've been thinking," she began, with an expression of practiced nonchalance on her face. "You know how I applied to that summer program in Paris?" I nodded, assuming she wanted to thank me for covering the application fees. "Well, I got in," she announced, momentarily breaking into a genuine smile. "That's wonderful, Vanessa," I replied, reaching across the table to squeeze her hand. "Congratulations! I'm really proud of you." Her smile faltered slightly. "Thanks, but there's a problem. The tuition is due next month, and it's expensive." I felt a familiar wariness creep in. "How expensive are we talking?" $28,000, she said, speaking quickly. "But it includes housing in Paris for 3 months, and all the materials, and some exclusive industry events with major fashion houses. It's really an investment in my future." I sat back in my chair, processing the number. "That's a significant amount, Vanessa. Have you talked to Mom and Dad?" She nodded. "They said they can put together about 8,000, maybe 10 if they really stretch. But that still leaves $18,000. I finished for her. "That's a lot of money." "That's the thing," she said, leaning forward with an intensity that immediately put me on guard. "I don't need it to be a lot of money for you. You and Nathan both have great jobs. You're spending almost that much just on flowers for one day." I sat in stunned silence as she continued. "I was thinking you could cover the rest as an early graduation gift. You know, an investment in my career. It's Paris, Madison. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for me." The audacity of her request left me speechless. She wanted me to use money that Nathan and I had saved for our future to fund her summer abroad, a program that, based on her pattern, she might not even complete. "Vanessa," I said finally, keeping my voice calm and even, "that's not a reasonable request. Nathan and I have been saving for our studio space. I'm happy to help you look for scholarships or even loans if you're serious about this program, but I cannot give you $18,000. Her expression darkened instantly, the practiced sweetness vanishing. "Why not? You're spending that much on flowers that will be dead in a week. This is my future we're talking about." "That's not the same thing at all," I explained. "The wedding is something Nathan and I have budgeted and saved for. We've made careful decisions about what matters to us. I'm sorry, but funding your program isn't something we can take on right now." "You're so selfish," she snapped, gathering her purse. "You always have been. You have everything. The career, the perfect fiancé, the big wedding, and you can't even help your own sister with one thing." As she stormed away from the table, I had a sinking feeling that this conversation was far from over. With our wedding day approaching, I feared Vanessa had just set a collision course that would impact more than just our already strained relationship. That evening, I recounted the coffee shop conversation to Nathan, still in disbelief at the magnitude of Vanessa's request. We sat on our condo balcony, watching the sunset paint Seattle's skyline in shades of gold and pink. $28,000, Nathan repeated, shaking his head. For a summer program? Does she have any concept of financial reality? Apparently not, I sighed, wrapping my cardigan tighter around me in the cool evening air. And she genuinely seemed to believe it was a reasonable ask, like we've been hoarding money just to deny her opportunities. Nathan reached over to take my hand, his thumb tracing gentle circles on my palm. This is what worries me about your family dynamics, Maddie. Your parents have created this expectation in her that everything should be handed to her without effort or consequence. I know, I admitted. But what do I do now? Our wedding is a month away. I don't want this tension hanging over everything. You maintain your boundary, Nathan said firmly. Clear, compassionate, but firm. We cannot set the precedent that outlandish demands will be met just to keep the peace. 3 days later, my parents invited us for Sunday dinner, a family tradition whenever possible. I knew Vanessa would be there and suspected she had already shared her version of our conversation with our parents. The moment we walked through their front door, the tension was palpable. Mom greeted us with hugs that felt slightly strained. Dad asked about wedding details with forced enthusiasm. Vanessa sat at the dining table, scrolling through her phone, not bothering to look up when we entered. During dinner, the conversation remained superficial until my mother cleared her throat, a sign she was about to address something uncomfortable. Madison, she began, setting down her fork. Your sister mentioned that she was accepted to that fashion program in Paris. She thought you might be willing to help her with the tuition. The careful phrasing told me everything I needed to know. Vanessa had presented a watered-down version of her demand, positioning herself as the reasonable party seeking modest assistance rather than someone demanding an $18,000 gift. Yes, she asked me to give her $18,000 for the program, I clarified, making sure the actual request was clear. I explained that isn't possible. My father's eyebrows shot up, suggesting Vanessa had indeed misrepresented our conversation. Well, perhaps there's a compromise, he offered, glancing nervously between us. Maybe you could help with a portion of it? Vanessa finally looked up from her phone. This program could launch my entire career. I don't understand why you can't see that. Vanessa, I said gently, I'm already helping you with your career. I paid your application fees and I've offered to help you find scholarships or loans. That's what I can realistically offer right now. But you're spending thousands on flowers, she countered, as though repeating this fact would somehow transform my financial reality. Flowers that will die in a day. Those flowers are part of a wedding that Nathan and I have saved for over 2 years to afford, I explained patiently. We've budgeted carefully and made many compromises to create the day we've envisioned. That's completely different from an unexpected $18,000 gift. What about a payment plan? My mother suggested, ever the mediator. Perhaps you could help her with a portion now and spread the rest out over time? Nathan shifted beside me, and I could sense his growing frustration with my family's inability to recognize the unreasonableness of the request. With our current financial goals and obligations, we can't commit to that kind of ongoing payment, I explained. The studio space we're saving for is crucial for both our careers. So you're just saying no? Vanessa's voice took on the dangerous edge I recognized from childhood, the precursor to a storm of emotion. After everything this family has done for you. The statement was so divorced from reality that I almost laughed. Everything the family had done for me? I had worked for everything I had, while Vanessa had been continuously supported well into adulthood. I'm saying I will help in ways that are financially responsible, I clarified. I can help you research scholarships, look into student loans, or even help you find an affordable alternative program. But I cannot give you $18,000. You know, my father interjected, his voice taking on the pleading tone I had heard countless times throughout our childhood. The wedding is so close. Maybe we could just table this discussion until after. We all want your special day to be perfect, Madison. The implication was clear. Give in to keep the peace or risk wedding day drama. It was the same pattern that had played out my entire life. The expectation that I would bend to avoid Vanessa's emotional outbursts. "There's nothing to table," I said firmly. "I've made my position clear. I'm happy to help Vanessa in ways that make financial sense, but funding her entire summer in Paris is not one of them." For the remainder of dinner, Vanessa maintained a cold silence, responding to direct questions with minimal words. As Nathan and I prepared to leave, my mother pulled me aside. "You know how she gets when she's disappointed," she whispered, her standard refrain whenever Vanessa didn't get her way. "Maybe you could at least look at some payment options with her, something more affordable that you could help with." "Mom," I said, feeling a lifetime of frustration rising to the surface. "I'm getting married in 4 weeks. I have my own future to think about. I've already offered Vanessa reasonable help. If that's not good enough for her, then that's something she needs to work through herself." The weeks before the wedding became increasingly tense. Vanessa showed up late to the final dress fitting, complained loudly during the rehearsal dinner planning, and made passive-aggressive comments whenever I was within earshot. "Hope your precious flowers are worth every penny," she remarked during the venue walkthrough, "since apparently money only matters when it's something for me." "Be careful what you wish for," she said as we discussed reception seating. "Beautiful things are so fragile, aren't they?" At the time, I took these as empty threats, the verbal lashing out of someone used to getting her way. I never imagined she would actually follow through on the implied sabotage, that she would turn my wedding day into a battleground for her perceived injustice. But looking back, all the warning signs were there, flashing red in a pattern I had become too accustomed to seeing. The day before our wedding arrived with the kind of perfect Seattle spring weather that event planners dream about. Clear skies, mild temperatures, and cherry blossoms in full bloom across the city. The forecast promised the same conditions for our wedding day, a rare gift in a region known for its unpredictable rain. The floral arrangements were scheduled for delivery at 10 a.m. on our wedding day, giving ample time for setup before the 4 p.m. ceremony. Eliza, our florist, had texted me photos the night before of the completed bouquets and centerpieces being stored in her commercial coolers. The images brought tears to my eyes. They were even more beautiful than I had imagined, the wild lilies creating a stunning focal point just as my grandmother would have designed. "Everything is ready for tomorrow," Eliza had written. "Your grandmother would be so proud." That morning, Nathan and I parted ways according to tradition. He to spend the day with his groomsmen at his brother's house, me to meet my bridesmaids at the hotel suite we'd booked near the venue. The separation felt strange after years of waking up together, but there was something sweet about the anticipation of seeing each other again at the ceremony. Lauren arrived at the suite first, arms loaded with coffee and pastries. "Last morning as a single woman," she teased, setting everything down on the suite's dining table. "How are you feeling?" "Excited, nervous, ready," I replied, accepting the cup she handed me. I just keep thinking about how perfect everything is going to be. By noon, the suite was filled with activity. Hairstylists working their magic, makeup artists creating the natural, glowing look I'd requested, my mother fussing with the veil that had been worn by both my grandmother and mother at their own weddings. Vanessa had texted that she was running late but would arrive in plenty of time, a message that didn't surprise anyone. My phone rang at 12:30, Eliza's name flashing on the screen. "The flowers are all set up at the venue," she reported cheerfully. "The centerpieces look amazing with those table linens you chose. Do you want me to send some photos?" "Please," I said, relieved that at least this part of the day was proceeding smoothly. "And the bouquets?" "In the cooler at the venue, ready to go. We'll bring them up to your suite at 3 p.m. as planned." When Vanessa finally arrived at 1:15, nearly 2 hours later than the other bridesmaids, I noticed something different about her demeanor. Instead of the cold hostility she'd displayed in recent weeks, she seemed almost cheerful. She accepted her bridesmaid dress without complaint, complimented the hairstylist's work, and even offered to help my mother with some last-minute details. "You seem in a better mood," Lauren whispered to me as we watched Vanessa chatting animatedly with one of the other bridesmaids. "I know," I replied. It's making me nervous, to be honest. Maybe she's finally accepted that this day isn't about her, Lauren suggested, though her tone indicated she didn't entirely believe it. At 2:45, my phone rang again. Eliza's name appeared once more, but this time when I answered, her voice held none of the cheerfulness from our earlier call. Madison, we have a situation, she said, her professional calm barely concealing something more urgent beneath. I need you to stay very calm when I tell you this. My stomach dropped. What's happened? The floral arrangements in the reception hall have been damaged. Actually, destroyed would be more accurate. She took a breath. Someone knocked over all the centerpieces. The hanging installations have been pulled down. The ceremony arch flowers have been dismantled. I sank onto the edge of the bed, my knees suddenly weak. How is that possible? Who would have access to the venue? The venue coordinator is reviewing security footage now, Eliza said. But Madison, I need you to know something else, and this is important. I braced myself for worse news. What is it? We're already handling it. I have a team of 5 florists working right now to recreate everything. We started the moment I discovered the damage. I blinked in confusion. But how? Those arrangements took days to create. There was a pause on the other end of the line. I had a backup plan in place. A complete duplicate order of flowers arrived this morning. Same varieties, same quantities. I've never done this before for any client, but something told me to be prepared. You ordered duplicate flowers. That must have cost thousands extra. Don't worry about that right now, Eliza cut in. The important thing is that your wedding will still have all the flowers we planned. They'll be slightly different in arrangement, but the essence will be the same. Your grandmother's wild lilies will still be the focal point. As the implications of what she was saying sank in, I glanced across the room to where Vanessa was having her makeup applied, laughing at something the artist had said. The timing of her arrival. Her sudden mood shift. The mysterious errand she'd mentioned needing to run before coming to the hotel. Eliza, I said quietly, turning away from the room full of bridesmaids. Was my sister at the venue earlier today? Another pause. The venue coordinator mentioned that a member of the wedding party had arrived early to check on some details. She had the family access code you provided. The confirmation hit me like a physical blow. Vanessa had deliberately destroyed the floral arrangements. Arrangements she knew held deep emotional significance for me, connected to our grandmother's legacy. She had calculated the timing perfectly, late enough that there wouldn't be time to completely fix the damage, early enough that I would discover it before the ceremony and have my day ruined. What she hadn't counted on was Eliza's extraordinary foresight and professionalism. Madison? Are you still there? Eliza's voice pulled me back to the conversation. Yes, I managed. Thank you, Eliza. I don't even know what to say. Say nothing, she replied firmly. This is your wedding day. Let me handle this situation. The flowers will be beautiful, I promise you. Your job is to be present and enjoy every moment of marrying Nathan. After ending the call, I sat motionless, processing what I'd just learned. Across the room, Vanessa caught my eye in the mirror and smiled. A smile that now seemed calculating rather than conciliatory. Lauren appeared at my side, immediately sensing something was wrong. What happened? I whispered the situation to her, watching her expression shift from shock to anger. That little, she began, starting to rise. I caught her arm. No, not now. This is exactly what she wants. Drama? Attention? My day ruined. So we just let her get away with it? Lauren hissed. No, I said, a strange calm settling over me, but I'm not going to give her the satisfaction of a scene. Not today. Lauren studied my face. What are you thinking? I'm thinking that today I'm marrying the love of my life. I'm thinking that thanks to Eliza's incredible foresight, we still have beautiful flowers for our wedding. And I'm thinking that after today, something needs to change fundamentally in my relationship with Vanessa and my parents. For the next hour, I continued with wedding preparations as though nothing had happened. I slipped into my dress, allowed my mother to place the family veil on my carefully styled hair, and posed for the photographer's getting ready shots. Through it all, I maintained a serene exterior while my mind worked through what Vanessa had done and what it meant. At 3 p.m., Eliza herself arrived with the bouquets, each one perfect, though I knew they must have been hastily assembled with the backup flowers. The bridal bouquet was especially stunning. The wild lilies arranged exactly as my grandmother would have designed them. "Is everything else?" I whispered when I had a moment alone with her. "All restored," she confirmed. "Different than the originals, but beautiful. The guests will never know." "Thank you," I said, fighting back tears. "I don't know how to repay you for this." Eliza squeezed my hand. "Your grandmother was my mentor and friend. I couldn't let her granddaughter's wedding be ruined. Now go get married and trust me to handle the rest." As the bridesmaids gathered their bouquets and prepared to leave for the venue, I noticed Vanessa's face when she saw the flowers, momentary confusion, quickly masked. She had expected them to be unavailable, another casualty of her sabotage. The ceremony itself was everything I had dreamed it would be. Walking down the aisle toward Nathan, seeing his face light up as he caught sight of me, exchanging the vows we had written together, all felt like magic. The flower arch had been beautifully reconstructed, with no sign of the earlier destruction. For those precious moments, I was able to set aside the knowledge of Vanessa's betrayal and focus entirely on the commitment we were making. After the ceremony, during the cocktail hour, I slipped away with Nathan to see the reception space before the guests entered. The room was transformed. Centerpieces graced every table, hanging installations floated above the dance floor, and floral garlands draped elegantly along the walls. If anything, these quickly recreated arrangements had a natural, slightly wild beauty that the more structured originals had lacked. "It's stunning," Nathan said, squeezing my hand. "Exactly what we wanted." I had told him briefly about what had happened, watching his expression darken with anger before he controlled it. "She won't get away with this," he had promised quietly. "But tonight is about us." Throughout the reception, I noticed Vanessa watching me closely, clearly waiting for some acknowledgement of what she had done. When none came, when I continued to smile, dance, and celebrate as though nothing had happened, her confusion grew increasingly evident. During the father-daughter dance, my dad pulled me a little closer. "The flowers are beautiful, Maddie. Everything is perfect." "Thanks to Eliza," I replied. "She had backup flowers ready." My father's step faltered slightly. "Backup flowers? Why would she need those?" I looked directly into his eyes. "Because Vanessa destroyed the original arrangements this morning." His face paled. "What are you talking about?" "We have it on security footage, Dad. She went to the venue early and deliberately ruined all the flowers. She didn't know Eliza had prepared contingency arrangements." He missed a step, nearly stumbling. There must be some mistake. Vanessa wouldn't. "She would, and she did," I said calmly, continuing to move through the dance. "We can discuss it after the honeymoon, but things are going to be different moving forward." For the remainder of the evening, I noticed my father watching Vanessa with a new awareness, while she remained oblivious, still waiting for her act of sabotage to be discovered and acknowledged. As Nathan and I shared our last dance of the evening, I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders, not because I was ignoring what had happened, but because I had made a decision that would forever change my relationship with my sister and parents. "I know that look," Nathan said softly as we swayed to the music. "You've reached your limit, haven't you?" I nodded against his shoulder. "There have to be consequences this time. Real ones." "Whatever you decide," he promised, "I'm with you completely." As we left the reception amid sparklers and well wishes, I felt a strange sense of clarity. The flower destruction, while painful, had given me the perspective I'd been searching for throughout my adult life. It was time to stop enabling behavior that would only grow more destructive if left unchecked. After the last guest departed, Nathan and I returned to our hotel suite. I kicked off my wedding shoes and sat on the edge of the bed, still in my wedding dress. "I keep thinking about her face when she saw the bouquets," I said, finally breaking the contemplative silence. She was shocked that her plan hadn't worked. "I know," Nathan replied, loosening his tie and sitting beside me. "The question is, what do you want to do about it? We leave for our honeymoon tomorrow. We could disconnect, enjoy Bali, and deal with all this when we get back." I shook my head, a plan already forming. "No, this needs to be addressed now, before she has time to spin the narrative. But I'm not going to yell or cry," or give her the emotional reaction she wants? Nathan nodded, understanding my intention. Strategic rather than emotional. Exactly, I confirmed. Vanessa has never faced real consequences for her actions. Our parents have always cushioned her from the natural results of her behavior, but I won't do that anymore. I reached for my laptop and opened it, the screen illuminating my determined expression. First, I logged into my bank account and accessed the special savings account I had labeled Vanessa's Paris Fund. With a few clicks, I transferred the $350 application fee back into our main savings account. Next, I composed an email to the fashion program in Paris. The email was professional and direct, explaining that I was withdrawing my offer to provide any financial support for my sister's participation. I requested that they inform Vanessa that she would need to secure funding independently. Are you sure about this? Nathan asked, reading over my shoulder. This means she probably won't be able to attend the program. I'm absolutely sure, I replied, clicking send without hesitation. What kind of message would it send if I helped fund her summer abroad after she deliberately destroyed our wedding flowers? That her behavior has no impact on my willingness to do her favors? That she can treat me however she wants and still expect my support? Nathan nodded, pulling me close. I think this is the right call. It's not vindictive. It's simply a natural consequence of her actions. Exactly, I agreed. I'm not doing this to hurt her. I'm doing it because continuing to enable her behavior hurts everyone, including her, in the long run. My phone began buzzing with text messages, not from Vanessa yet, but from my mother. Everything was so beautiful today, she wrote. You were a stunning bride. Your father and I are so proud. The irony of her message, given what Vanessa had done, wasn't lost on me. I drafted a response that would begin the process of changing our family dynamics. Thank you for being part of our special day. The flowers were beautiful thanks to Eliza's incredible work in replacing all the arrangements that Vanessa destroyed this morning. We have the security footage, so there's no question about what happened. I've withdrawn my offer to help with her Paris program fees as a result. I'll be unavailable for further discussion, as will be on our honeymoon. Love you both. I turned off my phone immediately after sending the message, knowing they would attempt to call and convince me to change my mind. Tonight was for Nathan and me, the beginning of our marriage, not for managing family drama. Do you think they'll understand? Nathan asked as I set my phone aside. Probably not immediately, I admitted. They've spent 25 years making excuses for Vanessa's behavior. That won't change overnight, but maybe this will be the beginning of something new for all of us. The next morning, before heading to the airport, I turned my phone back on to find dozens of missed calls and messages. Vanessa had apparently discovered my withdrawal from the Paris program almost immediately, as the administrator had contacted her after receiving my email. Her messages ranged from incredulous to furious. Did you seriously email the program director? That's so petty. I have no idea what you're talking about with the flowers. This is insane. Mom and Dad are going to help me instead. So your little revenge plan failed. My parents' messages were more measured but carried the same underlying expectation that I would relent. Madison, we understand you're upset, but this seems extreme. Your sister made a mistake. We all make mistakes. Please reconsider. Call us when you land. We can work this out as a family. I showed the messages to Nathan, who shook his head in disbelief. They still don't get it, do they? They see your response as revenge rather than a logical consequence. That's because they've never allowed natural consequences to play out, I explained. Every time Vanessa does something wrong, they rush to fix it for her, which only reinforces that her actions have no real impact. During our flight to Bali, I drafted detailed emails to both my parents and Vanessa, explaining my position clearly and calmly. To my parents, I outlined the pattern of enabling that had created this situation and expressed my concern that continuing to shield Vanessa from consequences would only harm her in the long run. To Vanessa, I was equally direct. What happened with the wedding flowers was not a misunderstanding or a mistake. We both know that. Your actions have damaged our relationship and demonstrated that you are not currently in a place where my financial support would be helpful to your growth. I hope this experience helps you understand that your choices affect other people and your relationships with them. Upon landing in Bali, I sent both emails before turning my phone to airplane mode again. Nathan and I had agreed to check messages only once per day during our honeymoon, refusing to let family drama overshadow this special time together. "Do you think this will make any difference?" Nathan asked as we settled into our beachfront villa, the sound of waves creating a peaceful backdrop to our conversation. "Honestly, I don't know," I admitted. "But what I do know is that I'm done participating in the dysfunction. Whether they change or not is up to them, but I'm changing how I respond to it." Over the next few days, responses trickled in. My father, always the more reasonable of my parents, sent a thoughtful message acknowledging that perhaps they had been too quick to excuse Vanessa's behavior over the years. My mother remained defensive, but agreed to, quote, "think about what you've said." Vanessa alternated between angry tirades and tearful apologies, her messages reflecting her emotional roller coaster as she faced actual consequences, perhaps for the first time. What none of them knew was that I had done more than just withdraw my financial support. Through my professional network, I had reached out to Eliza to get a copy of the security footage from the venue. What I saw validated everything I had suspected. Vanessa methodically moving through the reception space, deliberately pushing over centerpieces, pulling down hanging installations, and dismantling the ceremony arch with calculated precision. The footage showed her checking her watch repeatedly, timing her destruction to maximize the impact while minimizing the chance of being caught. I had also contacted the Paris program directly, speaking with the director to understand the full scope of Vanessa's application. What I discovered reinforced my concerns. She had significantly misrepresented her professional experience, claiming credit for styling work she had never done, and listing connections with designers she had never met. She had also indicated on her financial aid form that she had guaranteed family support for the full tuition amount, weeks before she had even asked me for the money. These discoveries confirmed that my sister needed to face reality, not be rescued from it yet again. Nathan and I were enjoying a tranquil breakfast on our private villa terrace, watching the Balinese sunrise paint the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks, when my phone exploded with notifications. After 5 days of relative quiet, with only occasional messages from friends sharing wedding photos or family members sending belated congratulations, the sudden barrage was jarring. "Something must have happened," I said, reluctantly picking up the device. "There are 14 missed calls from Vanessa, 10 from Mom, and even 5 from Dad." Nathan set down his coffee cup, his expression concerned. "Do you want to check now or wait until our designated message time later today?" I sighed, the peace of our morning already disturbed. "Might as well check now. If it's important enough for all of them to call repeatedly, we should probably know what's going on." The first voicemail was from Vanessa, her voice high-pitched and frantic. "Madison, call me back right now. The Paris program sent me an email saying they've reconsidered my acceptance. They're questioning my professional credentials. You have to call them and fix this." The second message, also from Vanessa but left 30 minutes later, was even more desperate. "They're saying someone contacted them about my application. They're asking for proof of my styling work and client references. Did you do this? Call me back." The third, from my mother, was predictably placating. "Honey, your sister is having a meltdown. The Paris program is suddenly requiring additional verification of her portfolio work. I know you're on your honeymoon, but could you please call the program director and sort this out? You know how important this opportunity is to her." I scrolled through the remaining messages, each one more urgent than the last, until I reached one from my father that caught my attention. "Madison, this is bigger than the Paris program. The gallery where Vanessa works called her in for a meeting today. Apparently, someone sent them the security footage from your wedding venue. They're questioning her continued employment. Please call when you can." The final message from Vanessa, left exactly 45 minutes ago, was simply sobbing, interspersed with incomplete accusations. "You ruined everything. Career over. Everyone knows. All your fault." I set the phone down, meeting Nathan's questioning gaze. "It seems reality is catching up with Vanessa all at once," I explained, summarizing the messages. "So the Paris program rejection triggered investigations into other aspects of her life?" he asked. I shook my head, piecing together the situation. I didn't share the security footage with anyone except my parents. Someone else must have sent it to her workplace. Then it hit me. Eliza. When I asked her for a copy of the footage, she mentioned that several of her assistant florists had to work overtime to recreate the arrangements. She must have shared the reason with them. And one of them must work at or know someone at the gallery, Nathan concluded. I considered the situation carefully. I think I need to get the facts before responding. Vanessa tends to catastrophize, and my parents enable that behavior by immediately jumping into crisis mode. First, I composed a brief text to my father, the most level-headed family member. Dad, we're still on our honeymoon. Please give me the objective facts about what's happening with Vanessa. While waiting for his response, I checked my email and found a message from Eliza. Madison, I feel I owe you an explanation. One of my assistant florists who helped save your wedding works part-time at the Westlake Gallery. When she recognized your sister there, she felt the gallery owners should know about her character. I didn't authorize this and only learned about it yesterday. I apologize if this has complicated your family situation. I showed the email to Nathan. Well, that explains how the gallery found out. Are you upset with Eliza? He asked carefully. I considered the question. No, actually. She didn't do anything wrong. Her assistant made that choice independently. And honestly, aren't these exactly the natural consequences that should follow Vanessa's actions? Why should she maintain a professional reputation that doesn't reflect her actual character? My phone chimed with a response from my father. The gallery has placed Vanessa on probation pending further review. They cited concerns about professional ethics. After viewing the footage, the Paris program has requested additional portfolio verification and client references by Friday, which she cannot provide because she exaggerated her experience. Your mother is devastated and blames herself. Vanessa is staying with us and hasn't stopped crying since yesterday. I read the message to Nathan, who nodded thoughtfully. It sounds like for the first time, your sister is experiencing the real-world impact of her actions. And my parents are seeing it happen without being able to fix it. I added. That's new territory for all of them. I composed a careful response to my father. I understand this is difficult for everyone. The situation with the gallery was not my doing, but it's a natural result of Vanessa's choices. As for the Paris program, they're simply requesting standard verification. If Vanessa had been honest in her application, this wouldn't be an issue. I believe the best thing for her right now is to experience these consequences and learn from them rather than having them erased. After sending the message, I turned to Nathan. I don't want this to consume our honeymoon. We've got a snorkeling excursion in an hour, and I intend to fully enjoy it. He smiled, leaning over to kiss me. That's my girl. Setting boundaries doesn't mean you have to sacrifice your own joy. We spent the day exploring Bali's magnificent coral reefs, the family drama temporarily forgotten as we marveled at the vibrant underwater world. It wasn't until evening, as we prepared for dinner, that I checked my phone again. My father had responded with a message that surprised me. You may be right. Your mother and I have been discussing our role in Vanessa's behavior patterns. We've decided not to intervene with either the gallery or the Paris program. This is difficult, but probably necessary. Enjoy your honeymoon. We love you. This is unexpected, I told Nathan as we walked along the beach toward the restaurant. My parents are actually stepping back and letting Vanessa face the music. Perhaps seeing such concrete evidence of her destructive behavior was the wake-up call they needed, Nathan suggested. The security footage doesn't leave much room for interpretation or excuses. During our remaining time in Bali, I maintained minimal contact with my family, checking messages only once daily and responding with brief, supportive but firm texts. My mother eventually sent a message that showed a glimmer of understanding. I've been thinking about what you said regarding enabling behavior. It's hard to admit, but we may have failed Vanessa by sheltering her from consequences. Your father and I are talking about family therapy. Vanessa's messages evolved too, moving from accusatory to reflective as the days passed. Her final text before we returned home read simply, I'm starting to understand what you meant about facing reality. We should talk when you get back. After 2 blissful weeks, we returned to Seattle, our bond strengthened by both the joy of our honeymoon and the united front we'd maintained throughout the family crisis. As we settled back into our condo, now filled with unpacked wedding gifts, I felt ready to address the situation with my family directly. I arranged to meet my parents for coffee first, without Vanessa. The cafe I chose was neutral territory, not their home where old patterns might resurface, not my condo where I might feel defensive. When they arrived, I noticed immediately that they looked tired, but somehow more grounded than I'd seen them in years. After exchanging pleasantries and honeymoon stories, my father cleared his throat. "We owe you an apology, Madison. For a lot of things, actually." My mother nodded, reaching across the table to take my hand. "We've been doing a lot of thinking while you were away. And talking. Probably more honest talking than we've done in years." "About Vanessa?" I prompted. "About all of us," my father clarified. "About the family dynamics we created that allowed what happened at your wedding to seem like a reasonable action to your sister." My mother squeezed my hand. "We've started seeing a family therapist, just the two of us for now, but Vanessa will join eventually. We've had 2 sessions and it's been eye-opening." "In what way?" I asked, cautiously optimistic about this unexpected development. My father sighed heavily. "The therapist helped us see how our different treatment of you two from childhood created unhealthy patterns. You became overly responsible, while Vanessa never developed responsibility at all. We thought we were being responsive to your different personalities," my mother added. "But the therapist suggested we may have created those differences through our parenting." This level of self-awareness from my parents was unprecedented. I had expected defensiveness, perhaps even anger, not this thoughtful reflection. "What about Vanessa?" I asked. "How is she handling everything?" They exchanged glances before my father spoke. "It's been rough. The gallery ultimately let her go. The Paris program officially rescinded her acceptance. She's been humbled, I think is the word." "She's also angry," my mother admitted. "But increasingly, that anger is turning inward rather than outward. She's starting to recognize her own role in what's happened." "Is she looking for another job?" I asked. My father nodded. "Actually, yes. And here's the surprising part. She's being realistic about it. She's applying for entry-level positions, acknowledging she needs to build actual experience. No more exaggerated qualifications or entitlement to positions she isn't qualified for." "That's progress," I said, feeling a complicated mix of emotions. Hope for genuine change, skepticism born from years of disappointment, and a lingering sadness for what our relationship could have been. "She's asked to speak with you," my mother said carefully. "When you're ready, no pressure." I nodded, appreciating that they weren't pushing for an immediate reconciliation. "I'll think about it. I'm not opposed to talking, but I need some time." My father smiled slightly. "That's more than fair. Take all the time you need." As we parted ways, my mother hugged me tightly. "I'm sorry your wedding day had that shadow over it," she whispered. "You deserved perfect flowers and perfect memories." "Actually," I replied, "the flowers were perfect thanks to Eliza. And the day was perfect because I married Nathan. Nothing could overshadow that." The following weekend, Nathan encouraged me to meet with Vanessa. "You don't have to forgive her," he said as we discussed the possibility. "But hearing her out might provide closure, regardless of where your relationship goes from there." I agreed and suggested a walking meeting at the sculpture park, a public place where we could talk privately while moving, which seemed less intense than sitting face-to-face across a table. When I arrived, Vanessa was already there, sitting on a bench overlooking Puget Sound. She looked different somehow. Her usually impeccable appearance slightly subdued, her posture less performative. She stood when she saw me, uncertainty written across her face. "Thanks for meeting me," she said simply. We began walking along the waterfront path in silence, both of us seemingly searching for the right words. Finally, Vanessa spoke. "I've been seeing a therapist," she began, "twice a week since everything happened. It wasn't my idea initially. Mom and Dad insisted, but I'm starting to see why I needed it." I nodded but didn't interrupt. "The therapist asked me why I destroyed your flowers," she continued. "Not what I told myself about why I did it, but the real reason. It took 3 sessions to admit the truth." She stopped walking, turning to face me directly. I was jealous, Madison. Not just of your wedding or your relationship with Nathan, but of your whole life. The way you've built something real through actual effort. Her candor surprised me. This level of self-awareness was new territory for Vanessa. My entire identity has been built around being the special one, the talented one, the one who deserves special treatment, she continued as we resumed walking. When that didn't get me what I wanted from you, I couldn't handle it. I wanted to hurt you. It's awful to admit that, but it's the truth. I appreciate your honesty, I said carefully. I'm not asking for forgiveness, she clarified quickly. I don't deserve that yet. I just wanted you to know that I understand what I did, and why it was so terrible. Not just destroying the flowers, but trying to ruin a day that meant so much to you. We walked in silence for a few moments before she spoke again. I've been thinking a lot about Grandma lately. About how disappointed she would be in what I did to her flower designs, to your tribute to her. This touched a deep chord in me. Yes, she would have been disappointed. She never treated us differently, did she? Vanessa mused. When we would visit her shop as kids, she gave us both the same responsibilities, the same chances to learn. She believed in earned achievement. I agreed. Everything she had, she built through hard work and genuine talent. I wish I had paid more attention to that lesson, Vanessa said quietly. Instead, I focused on getting what I wanted through manipulation and tantrums, because that worked with Mom and Dad. We reached the end of the park and turned back, the Seattle skyline creating a dramatic backdrop across the water. I've started volunteering at a community garden, Vanessa offered after another stretch of silence. Twice a week. They needed help with their flower beds, and I thought, I don't know, maybe it's a small way to make amends. Learning to grow things instead of destroying them. This gesture, small but symbolic, felt more genuine than any grand apology could have been. That sounds like a positive step, I acknowledged. I got a job too, she added. Nothing glamorous. Administrative assistant at a local arts nonprofit. Entry level, modest pay. But it's honest work, and I didn't lie on the application. As we neared the end of our walk, Vanessa stopped again. I don't expect us to be close right away, or maybe ever again. I understand that trust, once broken, doesn't simply repair itself, but I hope that someday we might build a new kind of relationship, something healthier than what we had before. I considered her words carefully. I hope for that too, Vanessa. It will take time and consistent change, not just words or short-term improvements. I know, she nodded. This is just the beginning of a long process. Thank you for listening today. That's more than I deserved. We parted with an awkward but not hostile goodbye, neither of us quite ready for a hug but having moved beyond the raw anger of recent weeks. As I drove home, I felt a cautious optimism. Not naive hope that everything would magically transform overnight, but recognition that genuine change might be possible. For Vanessa, for my parents, and for our family dynamics as a whole. 3 months after our wedding, Nathan and I hosted a housewarming party for our new photography studio space. A dream we'd finally realized after years of saving and planning. The industrial loft in the Arts District had perfect natural light, ample room for both my event planning consultations and Nathan's photography sessions, and a small gallery area for displaying his work. We had invited friends, colleagues, and select family members to celebrate this milestone. To my surprise, my parents asked if they could contribute something special for the occasion. We'd like to commission a permanent floral installation for your gallery wall, my father explained when they proposed the idea. Something that honors your grandmother's legacy and celebrates your new beginning. The gesture was meaningful, acknowledgement of what had been lost at the wedding and recognition of this new chapter in our lives. I accepted gratefully, suggesting Eliza as the florist for the project. On the evening of the housewarming, the studio was transformed. Nathan's photographs lined the walls, catering tables offered elegant refreshments, and in the center of the main gallery wall hung a stunning preserved floral arrangement. Wild lilies interwoven with native flowers in a design that echoed my grandmother's signature style while incorporating modern elements that represented Nathan's and my aesthetic. As guests mingled and admired the space, I noticed Vanessa enter quietly, carrying a small gift bag. She had been invited but had responded with uncertainty about attending. She approached hesitantly, clearly unsure of her welcome. "The studio is beautiful," she offered. "It's so perfectly you, both of you." "Thank you," I replied, genuine appreciation in my voice. Over the past months, Vanessa had maintained her therapy, her job, and her volunteer work. Our interactions had been limited, but increasingly comfortable. "I brought something," she said, holding out the gift bag. "It's not much, but I made it myself." Inside was a small, handcrafted photo frame, fashioned from pressed flowers. Clearly amateur work, but made with evident care and effort. "The flowers are from the community garden," she explained. "I've been learning pressing and preservation techniques. I thought maybe you could put a wedding photo in it, one from the reception with all the backup flowers that saved the day." The thoughtfulness of the gift, acknowledging both her wrongdoing and the beauty that had emerged despite it, moved me unexpectedly. "Thank you, Vanessa. This clearly took a lot of work." She shrugged, a gesture somehow both humble and proud. 6 attempts, actually. The first 5 were disasters. Turns out crafting requires patience. Who knew? We both laughed, a moment of genuine connection breaking through the lingering awkwardness. Later that evening, as the party wound down, I found myself standing with Nathan beside the floral installation, his arm around my waist as we surveyed our new professional home. "Happy?" he asked simply. "Very," I confirmed, leaning into his embrace. "Not just about the studio, though that's amazing. I'm happy about how far we've all come since the wedding." He nodded thoughtfully. "Your sister seems different. More present, less performing." "She's doing the work," I agreed. "Real change takes time, but she's showing up consistently, which is new for her." "And your parents?" "They're learning too. Family therapy is helping them recognize patterns they didn't see before. Dad told me they're reading books about healthy boundaries and enabling behavior." Can you imagine? Nathan smiled. Sometimes it takes a crisis to create breakthrough. That night, after everyone had left and we were closing up our new studio, I paused by the floral installation. The preserved blooms would last for years, a permanent reminder not just of my grandmother's legacy, but of resilience in the face of destruction. "You know what I keep thinking about?" I said to Nathan as he joined me. "Eliza's backup plan." She sensed something might go wrong and prepared accordingly, without drama or accusation. Just quiet competence and foresight. "A good life lesson there," he observed. "It is." I agreed. Hope for the best, prepare for challenges, and focus on solutions rather than blame when problems arise. In the months and years that followed, our family continued to evolve. The journey wasn't always smooth. Old patterns occasionally resurfaced, requiring renewed commitment to healthier dynamics. But with consistent effort and professional guidance, we gradually built something we'd never had before. Relationships based on mutual respect, rather than obligation or manipulation. Vanessa continued her personal growth, eventually earning a legitimate position in event styling, not through exaggerated credentials, but through dedicated apprenticeship and skill development. When she finally did study abroad in Paris 2 years later, she did so through a scholarship she had legitimately earned, and with savings from her own employment. My parents discovered a new chapter in their marriage once they stopped centering their lives around managing Vanessa's emotions. They began traveling, pursuing long-deferred interests, and developing healthier relationships with both their daughters. As for Nathan and I, our photography and event planning studio flourished. We developed a reputation for creating authentic, meaningful celebrations, particularly weddings where every detail told part of the couple's unique story. Eliza became our exclusive floral partner, our professional collaboration evolving into a close friendship. On our 2nd anniversary, we held a small vow renewal ceremony in the studio gallery. The floral arrangements, designed by Eliza with assistance from Vanessa, who had begun apprenticing with her 1 day a week, incorporated elements from both our original wedding flowers and the preserved installation. "Full circle," my father observed during the intimate celebration. "Not a circle," I corrected gently. "A spiral. We're covering similar ground but at a higher level of understanding." Looking around at my family, Imperfect but evolving, damaged but healing, I felt profound gratitude for the difficult journey we had undertaken. The destruction of my wedding flowers had ultimately led to the growth of something far more valuable: genuine relationships built on truth rather than obligation, accountability rather than enabling, and authentic love rather than performance. The backup flowers that saved my wedding day had been beautiful, but the transformation they ultimately inspired in our family was the true masterpiece, one that would continue to grow and evolve for years to come. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members? Drop a comment below sharing your experience and how it changed your relationships. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more real-life stories about family dynamics and personal growth. Share this video with someone who might be struggling with similar situations in their own family. Remember, sometimes the hardest decisions lead to the most necessary healing. Thank you for listening to my story, and I wish you courage in your own journey toward healthier relationships. 5 years after the infamous wedding flower incident, I found myself standing in the middle of what would soon be the most significant expansion of our business to date. The formerly empty warehouse space adjacent to our original studio was now being transformed into Bloom & Lens, a comprehensive wedding planning company that combined Nathan's photography, my event planning expertise, and a full-service floral department, headed by none other than Eliza herself. The irony wasn't lost on me that flowers, once the symbol of family dysfunction at my own wedding, had become the cornerstone of our thriving business. Life has a way of writing stories more poetic than we could imagine. What do you think about removing this wall entirely? Nathan asked, tapping on the divider between what would be the consultation lounge and the floral design studio. It might create a better flow if clients could see Eliza and her team working while we discuss their vision. I nodded, visualizing the space. Transparency in the process. I like it. We could install glass panels if we need to control temperature for the flowers. Exactly what I was thinking. He smiled, wrapping an arm around my waist. Our business partnership had proven as successful as our marriage. Nathan's artistic eye complemented my logistical mind perfectly, allowing us to create events that were both visually stunning and flawlessly executed. Adding Eliza's floral mastery to our services had been the natural next step. The sound of the front door opening interrupted our planning. Vanessa walked in, carrying several large portfolio books and looking slightly frazzled but professional in her tailored blazer. "Sorry I'm late," she called, setting down her materials on the reception desk. The meeting with that sustainability certification board ran longer than expected, but it was worth it. They're going to feature our flower sourcing practices in their industry publication. After 3 years of dedicated apprenticeship with Eliza, Vanessa had earned a legitimate position as our sustainability coordinator, responsible for ensuring our floral supply chain was both environmentally and ethically sound. The role perfectly suited her genuine passion for environmental justice, a cause she had discovered during her community garden volunteering. "That's fantastic news," I replied, genuinely pleased. "The locally grown initiative was your project from the start." Vanessa beamed with quiet pride, not the showy, attention-seeking kind from our childhood, but the authentic satisfaction of earned achievement. The Urban Farming Collective is especially excited about our commitment to purchase their entire graduation crop. It means financial stability for their youth training program. Watching my sister discuss business partnerships and social impact metrics, I sometimes marveled at how far she had come. The entitled young woman who had destroyed my wedding flowers out of spite had transformed into someone who built sustainable systems and created opportunities for others. "Have Mom and Dad confirmed for dinner tonight?" I asked as we moved toward the small kitchenette for coffee. Our parents were visiting Seattle for the weekend, eager to see the progress on the business expansion. "Yes," Dad texted an hour ago. "They're spending the afternoon at Pike Place, then meeting us at 7 o'clock. Vanessa poured herself a cup of coffee, adding a precise splash of cream. "He mentioned they have some news they want to share." I raised an eyebrow. "Any hints?" She shrugged. "Nothing specific, but Mom sounded excited when I spoke with her yesterday." Our family dinners had become relaxed affairs over the years, something I never would have believed possible in the aftermath of my wedding. The journey hadn't been linear, of course. There had been setbacks and moments when old patterns threatened to resurface. But with consistent therapy, clear boundaries, and genuine effort from everyone, we had built something precious. A family based on mutual respect rather than dysfunctional roles. That evening, we gathered at our favorite waterfront restaurant, seated at a window table overlooking the twinkling lights of Elliott Bay. My parents looked vibrant and relaxed, a far cry from the tense walking on eggshells people they had been for most of Vanessa's youth. After ordering, my father cleared his throat with a hint of ceremony. "We have something to share with you both," he began, taking my mother's hand on the table. "As you know, I'm retiring from the hardware store next month." We nodded. After 40 years running the family business, he had finally decided to step back. "Well, we've made a decision about our next chapter," my mother continued, her eyes bright with excitement. "We're selling the house in Oregon and moving to Oaxaca, Mexico for a year." "Mexico?" Vanessa and I exclaimed simultaneously. My father grinned. "Remember how we visited for that wedding you planned there last year, Madison? We fell in love with the arts community, the food, the pace of life. We've found a small house to rent in an artist's colony," my mother added. "I'm going to focus on my ceramics, and your father is going to take Spanish immersion classes and volunteer with a sustainable building project." I sat back, pleasantly surprised. These adventurous plans were worlds away from the cautious, routine-bound parents I'd grown up with, the ones whose primary concern had been maintaining peace at any cost. "That sounds amazing," I said sincerely. "When do you leave?" 2 months from now. We wanted to be here for the grand opening of Bloom & Lens first," my father replied. Vanessa leaned forward. "Have you told your friends back home? What did they say?" My mother laughed. "Most of them think we've lost our minds. Martha from my book club asked if we were having some kind of joint midlife crisis." "And what did you tell her?" I asked, amused. "I said maybe we are, and it's about time." My mother's eyes twinkled. "I told her that watching both our daughters take bold steps in their lives inspired us to stop playing it safe." My father nodded. "Your family therapist once asked us what we would do with our lives if we weren't organizing everything around avoiding Vanessa's tantrums." He glanced apologetically at my sister, who nodded in acknowledgement of the past truth. We didn't have an answer then. I think Mexico is our answer now. As dinner progressed, they shared more details about their plans, the language school they'd enrolled in, the local pottery cooperative my mother had connected with, the small but vibrant expat community they discovered online. "The most remarkable thing," my father said as dessert arrived, "is that we're not worried about how either of you will manage without us nearby. 5 years ago, I couldn't have imagined that freedom." Vanessa smiled softly. 5 years ago, I wouldn't have been manageable. "We've all grown," my mother said, reaching to squeeze Vanessa's hand. "That's what families are supposed to do, though it took us longer than most to figure that out." Later that night, as Nathan and I prepared for bed, I shared with him how moved I was by my parents' decision. "They're finally living for themselves," I said, hanging up my dress. "Not organizing their lives around managing Vanessa's emotions or compensating for the family dysfunction." Nathan nodded thoughtfully. "It's like they were frozen in those patterns for so long, and now they've thawed. They seem younger somehow." "They do," I agreed, "and it makes me wonder what other positive changes might still be ahead for all of us." 2 weeks later, I found myself immersed in the final planning stages for the grand opening of Bloom & Lens. The renovation was nearly complete, with just finishing touches remaining. Our marketing campaign had generated significant buzz in the Seattle wedding industry, and our booking calendar for the coming season was already filling rapidly. Eliza, now our business partner and floral director, joined me for a walkthrough of the new design studio. "The cooler system is perfect," she noted, checking the temperature controls. "And these workstations will allow us to handle 3 major events simultaneously." As we continued our inspection, Eliza grew uncharacteristically quiet. Finally, she turned to me with a serious expression. "There's something I've wanted to tell you for years, Madison, and with this new chapter beginning, it seems like the right time." I gave her my full attention, intrigued by her sudden solemnity. "The backup flowers at your wedding," she began. "The truth is, I didn't just happen to have extras on hand. I deliberately ordered duplicates of everything." "I know," I replied. You mentioned that when you called me that day. You had a backup plan. She shook her head. What I never told you was why. 2 days before your wedding, Vanessa came to my shop, supposedly to check on the arrangements. While she was there, I overheard her on the phone telling someone she was going to make sure perfect Madison had at least one thing go wrong on her precious day. I felt a chill despite the warmth of the room. You knew she was planning something? I suspected, Eliza clarified. I didn't know exactly what she might do, but something in her tone alarmed me. I've been in this business long enough to have seen family drama impact weddings before, so I quietly doubled the flower order that afternoon. I didn't want to worry you before your wedding, and afterward, well, it seemed like you had enough family complications to deal with. I leaned against one of the workstations, processing this revelation. So you spent thousands of dollars on extra flowers based on a suspicion? Eliza smiled gently. Your grandmother was my mentor, Madison. When she passed away, she made me promise to keep an eye on her girls. I think she knew your family dynamics better than anyone. Those backup flowers were my way of honoring that promise. Tears sprang unexpectedly to my eyes. I had no idea. The beautiful part, Eliza continued, is seeing how that crisis ultimately led to healing. When you hired me for your studio opening 3 years ago, Vanessa approached me privately to apologize for what she'd done. She asked if she could learn from me as a way of making amends. Her transformation since then has been remarkable. I nodded, thinking of my sister's dedicated work with our company and the genuine relationships she had built with colleagues and clients alike. Thank you for telling me, I said finally. And thank you for protecting my wedding day all those years ago. You saw a potential problem and quietly created a solution instead of adding to the drama. Eliza squeezed my hand. That's what good planners do. And now you've built an entire business on that principle, anticipating problems and creating beautiful solutions. The grand opening of Bloom & Lens exceeded all our expectations. The expanded space was transformed for the event, with dramatic floral installations showcasing Eliza's artistry, galleries of Nathan's photography, and vignettes demonstrating various wedding styles we could create. Industry colleagues, potential clients, and friends filled the space, buzzing with excitement. Local press covered the event, interviewing our team about the unique business model that brought photography, planning, and florals under one creative roof. My parents proudly greeted guests, my father enthusiastically explaining the sustainable building materials we'd used in the renovation, my mother pointing out the custom pottery she'd created for the floral displays. Their upcoming Mexican adventure had already infused them with a new energy that was wonderful to witness. Midway through the evening, I found Vanessa in a quiet corner, speaking intently with a young woman who looked vaguely familiar. Madison, I'd like you to meet Zoe, Vanessa said as I approached. She's the lead coordinator for the urban farming program we're partnering with. I extended my hand, placing the face now. Of course, from the Youth Training Initiative. It's wonderful to finally meet you in person. Zoe smiled shyly. I was just telling Vanessa how much your company's commitment means to our program. Having a guaranteed buyer for our flowers makes all the difference in what we can offer our students. Zoe was sharing some ideas for expanding our partnership, Vanessa explained, her eyes alight with enthusiasm. They have graduates who need apprenticeships, and with our expansion, we should definitely explore that. I agreed, impressed by my sister's initiative. Perhaps you could prepare a proposal for our next planning meeting? As Zoe excused herself to get a drink, I turned to Vanessa. You've really found your calling with this sustainability work, haven't you? She nodded, a quiet confidence in her expression that had replaced the desperate need for attention that once defined her. It gives me purpose. I'm building something positive instead of tearing things down to get what I want. She gave a self-deprecating smile. Quite the evolution, isn't it? It is, I agreed. And it suits you. The real you. Later that night, after the last guests had departed and we were doing a final walkthrough of the space, Nathan found me standing in front of a special display we had created near the entrance. A shadow box containing my preserved bridal bouquet alongside photographs of my grandmother in her flower shop decades earlier. Penny, for your thoughts? He asked, wrapping his arms around me from behind. I was just thinking about journeys. I replied, leaning back against him. How the worst moment of my wedding day eventually led to all of this. I gestured to the beautiful space around us. If Vanessa hadn't destroyed those flowers, would we be here now? Would she have found her path? Would my parents be embarking on their Mexican adventure? The philosopher in me wants to say something profound about how destruction sometimes precedes creation, Nathan mused. But the practical guy in me just wants to point out that you turned a family crisis into a thriving business model. I laughed. Backup plans as a business strategy? I suppose there are worse foundations. Not backup plans, he corrected gently. Resilience. The ability to create beauty even when things fall apart. That's what you've always done. And what you've taught your family to do too. The following morning, I arrived early at the studio, enjoying the quiet before our first official day of business in the expanded space. To my surprise, Vanessa was already there, arranging fresh flowers in the consultation lounge. Couldn't sleep, she explained when she saw me. Too excited about today. I helped her position a dramatic arrangement of local dahlias on the reception desk. Remember when you thought spending money on flowers was a waste? I teased gently. She rolled her eyes. I remember thinking a lot of stupid things. We worked in comfortable silence for a few minutes before she spoke again, her voice more serious. I've been wanting to tell you something, but I've never found the right moment. I set down the vase I was adjusting. What is it? I've been saving, she said, suddenly looking nervous. For the past 3 years, I've been putting aside a portion of every paycheck. It's not the full amount yet, but I'm getting close. For what? I asked, confused. $8,000, she replied, meeting my eyes directly. The cost of your wedding flowers. I know money can't undo what I did, but I want to repay what was lost. I stared at her, genuinely moved by this unexpected gesture. Vanessa, that's not necessary. The business insurance covered most of it, and it was years ago. It's necessary to me, she insisted quietly. Not because anyone expects it, but because it represents my commitment to making things right. I've been working with my therapist on making concrete amends, not just saying sorry. I considered her words carefully, recognizing the significance of this act in her healing journey. What will you do when you've saved the full amount? I thought maybe we could establish a scholarship fund for the urban farming program, she suggested. Something that helps young people discover their passion for flowers, like Grandma did for us. We could name it after her. The thoughtfulness of the proposal, transforming the restitution for destroyed flowers into an opportunity for growth and education, perfectly symbolized how far we had all come. I think that's a beautiful idea, I said sincerely. Grandma would love it, Vanessa smiled, relief evident in her expression. There's something else I've been considering, she continued. The program in Paris that I tried to manipulate you into paying for. They have a 2-week sustainable floristry intensive that aligns perfectly with our business model. I've applied and been accepted based on my actual experience this time. That's wonderful, I said. When would you go? Next spring, during our slower season. I'm paying for it entirely myself. I've been saving separately for this too. But I wanted to make sure you were comfortable with my taking the time away from the business. The fact that she was asking rather than demanding, planning responsibly rather than expecting bailouts, illustrated the fundamental change in her approach to life. I think it's an excellent professional development opportunity, I assured her, and you've earned it, legitimately this time. As our first clients began to arrive for the day's consultations, I found myself reflecting on the extraordinary journey our family had taken. The wedding flower disaster, painful as it had been in the moment, had ultimately sparked a process of growth and healing that none of us could have predicted. My parents had broken free from decades of enabling patterns to discover their own dreams and desires. Vanessa had transformed from an entitled young woman who destroyed things in spite to someone who created sustainable systems and made genuine amends. And I had learned that sometimes setting difficult boundaries, though painful in the short term, creates space for authentic relationships to eventually flourish. Most importantly, we had all discovered that family relationships don't have to remain frozen in dysfunctional patterns. With courage, professional support, and consistent effort, even the most damaged family dynamics can transform, not overnight, but through a series of small, significant choices made day after day, year after year. 6 months later, we gathered at a small urban farm on the outskirts of Seattle for the launch of the Eleanor James Memorial Scholarship Fund, named for my grandmother and funded by Vanessa's saved restitution, plus matching contributions from Bloom and Lens. The program would provide training and mentorship for young people interested in sustainable floristry. My parents had flown in from Oaxaca for the occasion, looking tanned and relaxed after 6 months of their Mexican adventure. My mother proudly displayed ceramic planters she had created for the ceremony, while my father conversed in surprisingly fluent Spanish with several of the farm's staff members. As we unveiled the scholarship plaque, I watched Vanessa address the small gathering of community members, students, and local press. Her speech was eloquent and heartfelt, focusing on transformation and second chances, themes she understood intimately. "Flowers taught me that beauty can emerge from difficult circumstances," she told the audience. "A seed has to break open before it can grow. Sometimes our most painful moments become the foundation for our most meaningful contributions." Nathan squeezed my hand as we listened, both of us recognizing the profound truth in her words. Our company motto, "Beauty from Unexpected Places," had emerged from our own experience of creating something meaningful from what could have been merely a wedding day disaster. After the ceremony, as guests mingled among the farm's flowering beds, Eliza joined Nathan and me at a quiet table. "Your grandmother would be so proud of this," she said, gesturing to the scholarship recipients who were eagerly discussing their upcoming training with Vanessa. "Not just the program itself, but how your family has bloomed despite difficult circumstances." "Like her wild lilies?" I nodded, remembering my grandmother's words about unexpected beauty. "Exactly," Eliza smiled. "You know, in 40 years of floral work, I've learned that the most resilient blooms often come from challenging environments. They develop stronger stems, deeper roots." Nathan nodded thoughtfully. "There's a photography philosophy that says the most compelling images often emerge from moments of tension or contrast rather than perfect harmony. I think that's true for families too," I added, watching my parents chat animatedly with a group of urban farming students. "The work we've all done to heal has created something stronger and more authentic than what we had before." As the afternoon progressed, I found myself standing alone for a moment, taking in the scene around me. My reinvented parents sharing stories of their Mexican adventures, Vanessa confidently mentoring young people with genuine expertise she had earned through dedicated work, Nathan capturing it all through his camera lens, creating visual poetry from ordinary moments. 5 years ago, watching my wedding flowers being destroyed, I could never have imagined that this painful moment would ultimately lead to such profound transformation for everyone involved. The backup flowers that saved my wedding day had been just the beginning of a much larger story about resilience, growth, and the courage to create new patterns. Sometimes life's most beautiful arrangements emerge not from perfect plans, but from how we respond when those plans fall apart. In the language of flowers that my grandmother so loved, our family had finally learned to bloom where we were planted, turning toward the light even after the harshest storms. If you've experienced family conflict that seemed impossible to resolve, I hope our story offers some encouragement. Transformation rarely happens overnight, but with consistent effort, professional support when needed, and willingness to break old patterns, even the most damaged relationships can heal in ways you might never expect. The journey isn't always easy, but it's worth every difficult conversation, every boundary maintained, every small step toward authentic connection. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.